Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to participate in an offline event and to see the faces, in some cases half of the faces, but still, that makes me happy. A lot was said today about the stories and histories of technologies as to where everything is going, what to do from the point of view of digitalization, what kind of global trends there are. Now we're going to talk about cities a little bit and whether everything is driven by AI or networks or not. Or maybe we should look at a comprehensive process which is capable of solving a specific task. So the value chain was made greatly by our respected moderator. And if you look at what's important from the point of view of the end user service in the value chain, it covers 48% of the total weight. 17% goes to connectivity, and that's it. Well, let's get back to the cities. Urbanistics is a very burning reality. In the coming years in Russia, we are planning to simultaneously develop city agglomerations and so-called basic points. It's smaller cities or smaller towns with a higher quality life than in similar cities. The neighboring task is to organize transport connections inside and among the agglomerations, as well as providing transport accessibility of those smaller points. Now, when we're boosting and storming growth is in store for us, expansion, and it is very important to plan the infrastructure in the right way. And the basics of such planning should be the data-based approach. Needless to say, that will allow us to make more effective management and economic decisions to create maximally comfortable city space. Based on, it's a global trend, data-based, and I would like to brag, Russia is not lagging behind at all. The proof is based on MTS. It's the story about our big data service and our research, which is in our product portfolio, is the biggest in demand of B2G for all Russia. It's in 2020, 2021, we have implemented 70 geopolitical projects in 36 regions of Russia. Totally, in 2020, last year, the demand for digital solutions of MTS by city administrations has tripled. One of the main reasons was pandemic, unfortunately, but nevertheless, this gave us certain growth to that area in general as an industry. And according to MTS, for instance, we have the big data department, and according to that department, respected colleagues have calculated that during self-isolation, 15% of Muscovites went outside the city and worked and lived near Moscow. For you to better understand, it's the number of people who worked remotely grew 5 times last year. The development, this development has dynamically changed the patterns of Muscovite, which is less predictable for us. And we have to somehow react because remote work or education, different regimes of limitations related to migrations, mass vaccinations, all those things do impact the loading of communal services, transport situation, and social facilities. The analysis of big data helps us to take everything into account. That's one part of this process that I've mentioned at the beginning. By the way, we have a geo-analytical model that is capable of analyzing migrations and the realistic headcount of the population to create a portrait of residents in different districts of the city based on social demographics and typical movements and migrations of the residents, which is quite a well-working model. And in some cases, we even checked it to know that we are not cheating ourselves. This really gives us an opportunity to plan the development infrastructure accordingly and to distribute the budgets, not from the point of view of how it seems to us, but the way it should be. For instance, in Kazan, we implemented a pilot to analyze the migrations of the residents of one residential area to plan the social infrastructure. In Kazan, well, it was the project was a little bit commercially oriented. In the Ekaterinburg, the density of the population in different districts of the city was analyzed, and typical routes of migration to develop the transport economical model of the city up to 2035, which is quite a tangible effect economically to the customer. In Moscow, our data, I mean, colleagues correct me if I'm wrong, the data was used to develop Moscow subway and Moscow railway and selecting the location of Moscow's central diameters. Well, we can feel the demand for this data story. So that's why MTS has created a platform which is called MTS Region, and it can do whatever I've already enumerated and even more, because up until now, I think we've collected about 1,200 metrics, but the main ones in demand allow me to articulate them. The platform is done in the way that an authority can switch on or get connected and get an access to impersonal information on the headcount or social demographic content and seasonal and daily migrations of the population and tourist flows. But importantly, it all happens from the point of view of managing or controlling, and you can update the information both manually and automatically. Nevertheless, also, I think the previous session mentioned that the data is critical, of course. Nothing can operate without it. And to a large extent, irrespective of how great algorithms we can invent. And from the point of view of AI, or as was a little bit fixed by linear algebra, well, the task is to aggregate and actualize and replenish the sources of data. Okay, let me practically describe it as one of the areas we learned to formulate the data. And in good concession, it's smart digital real estate. Well, I mean residential, first of all. The interest to smart homes, smart houses is growing in Russia by the developers, the state, the authorities, and residents. And there are so many tracks now underway, many streams, and the authorities, operators, developers, all are involved in the thing. According to the forecast, coming 12 months, the coverage of households by different smart things could come to 2.8 million of households, which is approximately 5% of the total volume. With all this, there's the estimate of Discover Research Group. About 50% of the volume covers Moscow and near Moscow region. So the penetration in the rest part is not yet good enough. And the 50% money-wise amounts to 4 billion rubles. In the majority of cases, we should here stress that all those systems of smart houses, first of all, are installed in new builds and higher class residential construction. Let's talk about the nature of this creation. It means when people just wanted to make their life a little bit more comfortable, and that's how it all started with that class of real estate. Well, but now the approach has changed dramatically, and certainly it has become uh, implemented in many other classes of real estates as the necessary minimum of digital basic layer, but a lot of other things like metering devices from the point of view, well, you have to send the data to the platform, which sends it to pre-billing, then to application, and the user to pay. And all this process should be connected in and with a chain of mutually integrated platforms to continuously and uninterruptedly do it. So that's the process we now have in place, and MTS was the first among Russian operators which has managed to implement a project of digitalization of multi-apartment building by way of integration and telecommunication and in engineering networks into one single network. Quite a fresh approach, which allows us to provide wide band and onboarding of devices and providing business processes and connected with the systems of management companies. And so this process has been implemented, and you can even look up if you want. Nevertheless, the developer has about 20% of upside in his investments and simplifies the life of the management company from the point of view of operations of the facility. The most important, that's where we are today, but where to go? So the next logical step is digital district or municipality. And now big projects have been committed, showing that we can demonstrate the way it will look in the nearest future, coming several years. But the objective there is not only to digitalize, but to provide integration with the data, which is going to be collected from different sources into singular system to be processed by AI. And I'm ashamed to mention AI because the previous session said it's not the right thing to say. Well, still, I'm used to using this phrase. Sorry. And there's a survey of which says that in the coming 3 years, the most innovative cities in the world on the list of Smart Cities 4.0, Moscow is on the list too, according to the for the reasons we know, because we are one of the leading cities. That investments in digital the investments will grow digitally. That's the market estimate, and the city will aggregate not only the operator's data, but the whole information
from the databases of the state agencies for video surveillance and transport and eco-monitoring, meteo stations, and some types of wearable devices. This will be a general picture that will be processed. But, 200,000 was the figure mentioned today. This is a coincidence. I didn't hear about, I never heard about this material, but this should work on something, not only not only fiber and fiber optics, but other systems. 5G mentioned today. More base stations there will be around with a higher density, and the technology of LP1 networks like NB-IoT, energy efficient networks, and they An important thing about this to remember is that these technologies are coming in the horizon of a decade, not more than that, and they will just substitute 2 and 3G, and this will go forward towards a more high-speed, dense network. So, colleagues, I covered my time slot. I think I should stop here. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here with you. Thank you.